So this is a quick sound check to make sure all systems are at go. Once you guys are hearing me, can you type yes to the right of your screen in the message window? Frame delay. Hi, good afternoon. This is a quick sound check. If you guys are hearing me, can you type yes to the message window to the right of your screen? Thank you, Siobhan. Excellent. Excellent. I guess we can start. Good afternoon and welcome to Cipriani College of Labor and Cooperative Studies Project Management webinar series entitled The Project Management Implications of COVID-19. I am Nigel Bagwat-Saran, the head of department for project management at the college, and I will be your moderator for this afternoon's proceedings, the first installment of our project management webinar series entitled Rethinking the Strategic Direction of Companies in a COVID-driven Environment. Our session this afternoon, revisiting and rethinking the strategic direction of companies in a COVID-19 environment, will explore the impact COVID-19 has had on organizations, and in particular, their strategic plans, their projects within their portfolio as they navigate the turbulent external macro environment towards business sustainability. I am sure that we can all agree, given the intrusiveness of COVID-19 over the past few months, which has stymied face-to-face human interaction in all quarters of life, businesses are rethinking and reshaping their workplace projects within their portfolio towards some sort of normalcy and business sustainability. As businesses contemplate this new normal, which involves operating in a COVID-19 driven environment, optimizing their projects towards outcomes and to more so towards strategic business outcomes is of paramount importance. Over the next few weeks, our dynamic range of presenters, many of whom are members of the project management faculty at the college, in addition to wider industry professionals in project management, will be exploring 5 key themes in project management under the central theme, the project management implications of COVID-19. I would just like to share with you the 5 themes we'll be discussing over the next few weeks. Session 1, which is taking place live at this time at the college, revisiting the strategic direction of companies in a COVID-19 environment. I know we are all eagerly awaiting this presentation, which will start in a few moments. Our second session, Thursday, 23rd July, rethinking the project portfolio, project identification, and selection. Our third session to be delivered by esteemed IT professionals in the local sector, ICT, and adapting to the new norm. And that new norm is COVID-driven, Thursday, 6th August 2020. Our fourth session, procurement management in a COVID-19 driven environment, will be delivered by one of our very own astute faculty members in project management, Ms. Teresa Frederick, on Thursday, 20th August. And our season finale, delivering on business projects in a COVID-19 driven environment. So I know based on your interest, based on your training, based on your organization, you might be self-selecting a particular session. I urge you, right, to do not touch that dial, as a disc jockey would say, and tune in and participate to all sessions over the next 2 months. Cipriani College of Labor and Cooperative Studies is a powerhouse for project management training in the local and regional markets. In fact, we are one of the first institutions to offer a full-fledged bachelor's degree in project management. As such, having this repository of contemporary knowledge in project management, we saw it fit to host this project management webinar series under the central theme, given the current scenario, the project management implications of COVID-19. At this point in time, I would like to introduce our main presenter for our session, which is quite easy to do for me because our main presenter, Mr. Wesley Bridgemohan Singh, is a son of the soil, a son of Cipriani Labour College, having completed his associate degree in project management many years ago. With over 20 years of experience in the construction sector, Wesley completed his associate degree in project management and moved on to complete his master's in business administration with an emphasis in strategic planning from the Heriot University. At this present point in time, he's engaged in further project management studies at the postgraduate level while serving as an adjunct member of the project management faculty. He also provides consultancy services in project management in the private sector. This afternoon, Wesley will be kicking off our first session in this webinar series, revisiting the strategic direction of companies in a COVID-driven environment. I am ecstatic. I am pleased to be a moderator for this afternoon's proceedings. I know many of you may be having lunch or working lunch, or you may have taken some time off at work. Some of you might be presenting in the comfort of your home. I urge you to be highly involved, highly active, right, during this discussion here, which will elapse about 40 to 45 minutes. Please ask questions. Please post your comments, your question, your messages in the message window to the right of your screen. Right? Wesley is very engaging, and I know he will be entertaining questions throughout the course of the presentation, as well as there will be a formal, right, question and answer session with over 15 to 20 persons watching now. I can see we have persons from all quarters, from the procurement sector, from the construction sector, from the private, the public sector. We have officials from the various ministries, Ministry of Planning, Ministry of Housing, Ministry of Community Development. We even have members from the TGG Credit Union looking at the diverse nature of the participants who are locked on here this afternoon. Without further ado, I will now like to introduce our presenter for this afternoon, Mr. Wesley Bridgemohan Singh. Well, to Wesley.
Thank you, Nigel.
You're welcome.
So welcome, guys, to our presentation today, where we would be looking at some of the strategic frameworks and tools that we can employ for an analysis of the environment given the implications of COVID. So we would look at a couple tools. I will engage you to also participate by typing in the chat window. Nigel will gather those questions, and at certain intervals, we'll engage in answering those questions. So to kick things off, the learning outcomes. Upon completing this webinar, you will have an overview for conducting a micro and macro analysis of the business environment using tools and techniques for creating your strategic plan and direction. So the emphasis here is becoming aware of the tools that we can employ for charting or forecasting where we should go in the future. But before we do that, we need to ask ourselves, what is the effects of COVID presently on our business? What is the present state of our business, so to speak, or present state of the world? And looking at ILO, International Labour Organization's report, COVID-19 and the World of Work, Impact and Policy Response, dated March the 18th, 2020, the pandemic has affected a lot of things. We have had over 500 deaths so far and over 1 million infections. This has caused widespread effects such as reduced working hours as well as productivity. So it has affected our productivity on the global scale It has also affected the supply of goods and services, as well as the demand of goods and services. And to go further, it has disrupted industries, the supply chains. And when we say supply chains, where do we get our raw materials from for our goods to produce our products? Those supply chains have been disrupted, and businesses of any size, from small to large, particularly in industries like aviation, tourism, hospitality, and retail, right? They have been massively disrupted. How do we respond to that? That's our present state. Besides the disruption in goods and services, many people are unable to get to their workplaces. So that travel restriction, it affects our comfort. It also affects our productivity. Those of us going to school, we cannot get to school, and we'll see a little later on how technology would have complemented now how we live as a result of this disruption. There's also fear and uncertainty. This has caused the fear of the future and uncertainty, with consumers' reluctance to purchase goods and services, particularly luxury and non essential. So people have become fearful. We're not too sure about the future. Therefore, we're reserved with regard to how we spend. So the above effects that we've discussed so far are forecasted to last beyond the first half of 2020. And I mean, we're already in July 2020, and this would lead into a global economic recession. Therefore, it calls for working together at different levels to implement policies. And these levels look at government, workers, and the employers. We all need to get together and have a holistic approach to how we respond to COVID. So a bit of our present state there, the effects that it has on COVID has on our business, on our personal life. We look at some of the topics just to give you some details of what we'll be discussing. Now, as a result, there is a need for individuals and businesses to take action by revising their strategic approach. To help with this exercise, we would be looking at some tools and frameworks. Now, please note, these tools and frameworks are used in large management sessions and includes brainstorming techniques, facilitated workshops with experts, etc. Therefore, today's webinar provides an overview, and I want to underscore that. It provides an overview, right, of their use and not an in depth analysis. The intent really is to show you the tools to stimulate your ideas so that you can leave the session saying, okay, if I want to look at the macro environment and what is happening globally, there's a particular tool I can draw on and we can start discussing those areas, right? So the frameworks and tools for analysis, we would be looking at the business environment today from the perspective of the macro environment. And the tool we would use there is Pastel. This is the large picture in terms of the global environment where we have little control. And these are the global factors that should inform our business decision and strategy. We'll also look at the micro environment. That's a smaller picture, our industry, where we can control our actions to suit the factors in the macro environment. So, firstly, to analyze the macro or global environment, we'd use the PASTEL tool or framework. And this is the acronym for political. P stands for political, E is economic, S is social factors, T is technological factors, E is environmental factors, and L is legal factors. So we'll get into those factors and how the trends they have presently as a result of COVID. The tools we would use as we proceed will be the Porter's five forces when we look at the industry level for an analysis of the industry environment. And this tool looks at the forces that are at play in the market we operate in, including buyers and sellers, buyers and suppliers, and the general intensity of the competition. So, further, for our internal business capabilities, we would use the SWOT analysis. tool, which represents, and again, the acronym, it represents strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats facing our business. And we'll see how we use those areas shortly. And then, of course, we'll plan a strategy for the global, these global and industry forces based on our business capabilities. So, therefore, together, these tools will give a clear understanding of the present situation related to the internal and the external factors. So let's go straight into our macro environment, our macro analysis. Now, this tool was developed by Professor Francis Aguila, right? And he looked at particular areas in the macro environment. He looked at the political factors. And what can we say here? What are some of the political and, and government decisions and interventions taken to mitigate the spread of COVID 19 and its effect on the population and business? So, the government, in an effort to maintain stability, has implemented travel ban, including trade restrictions to prevent the imported cases of COVID. There are also health policies introduced, the introduction of additional support services to the health sector with designated hospitals and testing centers, daily briefings on the spread of the virus, media campaigns on prevention and care, sorry, and introduced a phased approach to reopening. So we have seen the health sector sort of stepping up to the plate and trying to protect the citizens, trying to protect the economy by extension. We've also had regulations and laws updated to deal with controlling the population's behavior and as a result, the spread of the virus. And there was some fiscal policy as well. We have the central bank has made adjustments to its lending rate and regulatory loan repayment to commercial banks with the intent that this is passed on to the population. And I think we have seen some of the banks giving um, some additional time to make your payments, to make your mortgage payments, etc., all in an effort to ease the burden on the consumer. And then we had some infrastructure policies as well. We had the maxi taxi policy. Ministry of Works has granted a fuel grant to maxi taxis, I think to the tune of $2,000. And then, of course, we had loans for small and medium sized businesses for payroll support, including creative arts personnel and unemployment relief grants. So, in summary, the political factors have maintained a level of confidence in the population that the pandemic is under control and the country would soon be back to business. So this speaks to business confidence and stability. If we read much into these factors, and the decisions taken, we can say, okay, we can stick around in business for a while in Trinidad and Tobago because it seems that the political directorate will have this thing under control very soon. So moving on to the economic factors at play, what are some of the financial challenges faced by the buyers and sellers in the economy? So to help with these challenges, we had things like interest rates adjustment, the move by central bank to drop its repo rate, which is its lending rate to these commercial banks, allow the banks to transfer this reduction, to their customers, leaving more disposable income in our pockets. So the customer having to pay less interest automatically has more money in their pocket to spend on those essential items at this COVID pandemic time. We had unemployment. I mean, a key um, characteristic of the COVID pandemic is a rise in unemployment. Most countries have been affected by this rise in unemployment. Then we also had disposable income. We had some effects there in terms of lower disposable income due to the rise in unemployment and the customer preferring to keep their earnings in case it gets worse. So that fear factor lowers, also contributes to less spending in the economy. Another area we had is the disruption of the demand and supply cycle caused sellers to reduce their prices below cost, right, in order to get it off their hands. So, perishable products, People having it there for long, they have an expiry date on them. They want to get it off their hands. People are not spending as much. To remain attractive, they need to drop their prices sometimes below cost. So, in summary, the economic factors are predeterminants of the economy's performance and the purchasing power of the customer. With less income available due to increased unemployment and the fear factor of the COVID-19 pandemic, businesses are forced to adjust their product offerings. So we clearly can see that based on my overview of some of the economic factors at play. So we'll go into that to the social factors now. What is really taking place in terms of the social factors? What are the new trends in society as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic? So some of the social trends and lifestyle attitudes observed due to the pandemic and social distancing rules, we have family, friends, and workers connecting via the internet on social media and other custom websites, right? So there has been a huge drive, there's no doubt about it, to provide remote access for working from home and sometimes in educational fields. So schools have looked to purchase technology, and we look at that factor um, in a short while. Um, they have looked at how technology can facilitate work at home based on this new social trend and social distancing. So this provides for an expanding of the online market for online software for communication. So we've gone to places like Skype, for example. Right now, our trend is to communicate with you using YouTube, right? The other point is online tools for teaching, such as Google Classroom and Zoom, is now the trend. Also, this has led to using social media for company advertising. So, marketing on these social platforms has increased significantly. Together with that, there's a move towards online shopping and a closure of some retail stores. So, worldwide, we've seen a lot of retail stores folding up. We've had a lot of mergers and acquisitions taking place because some of these retail companies on their own cannot sustain themselves given the global COVID pandemic effect. So, in summary, the social factors are dictating how populations and businesses interact with each other, not to mention the disrupting supply chains and the shutdown of the usual retail stores due to the lockdown have provided for growth in other areas in terms of technology, which is what we look at now. So, in terms of the technological factors, what is the latest and in demand technology on the market if we survey that market now? And as a result of the social trends, so I like to point out that the social trends is really what is dictating how businesses adjust in an environment now. That factor of social distancing is leading people to now rely on technology to fill the void or to complement these new trends. So, as a result of the social trends, there are a number of changes in the technology and industries. For example, education and workplace learning. Institutions are investing online tools that are efficient and students are learning on the go. So, for example, you as a participant are now logged on probably at work in your lunchtime, gaining some knowledge, interacting here. The whole sphere of technology allows that now because of the COVID lockdown. So, in terms of communication, businesses require enterprise wide interconnectivity for activities and meetings, including staff and board of directors meetings. So, you have that increasing use of technology for communicating and online working. We have retail in terms of businesses require technology allowing for placement of orders, issuing receipts, and record keeping of customers. So because retail has shifted so much as a result of COVID, they now have to have technology that will complement their processes in the organization in terms of taking orders. Sometimes we have some social websites that are so custom designed, they can give you a spreadsheet to take and check off your order, and then they will streamline it and deliver it to you. Some of the groceries are also offering it. So it's something like Amazon, right? And just an example, even the health sector is reviewing the way they do business, with telephone and virtual visits for patients. So there's definitely a change at the core in terms of how businesses operate. And as a result, technology companies, and there's a key part here, are investing in research and development for the latest technological solutions for the business models of their customers. So people are actually going to these technology companies and saying, "We want an app that could do this. This is our need. Can you give us a technology solution to meet this need?" So together, you would need training for your employees and for the users of the technology. In summary, the technology factors are critical to business success given the COVID 19 pandemic requirement for social distancing, which is reinforced by the political factors of laws and regulations, right? So they're all interconnected. Once you start doing your analysis, you will see how political and technology, social, economic, etc., all interconnected in some way. So we're going to go on to the environment, and just bear with me until we get to the end of this session, and I'll take some questions. Please feel free to type in chat so that the moderator could feed those questions to me. So in terms of the environmental factors, what are the main concerns of environmentalists? So I looked at environmentalists at this point in time. We have experienced the positive effects on the environment from the COVID 19 lockdown and travel restrictions, including the reduction in population pollution levels. Sorry. The effects of this positive climate change is seen in the viewing of the Himalayas, which has not been seen for decades. So we have the Himalayas now being seen after 20 years or so, and also some of the canals in Venice and Amsterdam. They're actually clean. You can see the fishes, it's clear. So the question in terms of climate change, would this lead to business as usual? Or would policy, in terms of that political factor now speak to controlling pollution and reducing the country's and businesses' carbon footprint? So it may be an ideal time. This growing awareness can affect how companies operate and the products they offer in the future. So it's definitely an area we need to look at. We may not see it now, but policies could speak to it based on the trends that we are observing right now, and lobbyists being equipped with evidence to show that pollution is causing harm to the environment. We may have to go towards policies and laws that could restrain and constrain our business operations. So the final area is the legal factors. What legal restrictions can prohibit our operations? So while this area overlaps with the political factors, there are some specific laws worth mentioning here, right? So employment and labor laws. What adjustments are required to allow remote working now and in the future? Definitely we can't continue with the normal contract that requires you to get to work at 2 o'clock, sorry, at 7 o'clock, uh, and finish at 5, or start at 9 and finish at 5. How do we ensure that workers in their contracts while they work remotely actually get productivity done? In terms of health and safety, adjustments would be required as countries open back for business, especially if a vaccine is not created soon. So these are some of the things we need to consider once we're moving forward in business. How do we continue this new normal? Other areas legally, travel and immigration laws. This is consideration for the countries worst hit and how potential travelers will be screened upon entry. How do we deal with countries once we start opening back the borders? Do we allow individuals just back in, right? Or do we screen them? Do we quarantine them? Some of the other laws that I thought of is commerce and trade laws, including consumer protection laws. How do we protect the consumer now in this COVID environment? So these requirements can increase the cost of doing business in the future, right? It is clear that companies need to know what is and what is not legal in order to trade successfully and ethically. And it's always wise to have a legal advisor on your team or somebody with corporate law experience so they can advise you in terms of how you should operate with different countries, different time zones, and sometimes even in your own environment. So that was just a basic overview of some of these areas and how you can look at these areas in relation to crafting the future and forecasting where the world will go. I mean, of course, you will add context to it given your situation. So, the summary of what I've looked at so far, the government policies are focused on maintaining stability in the macro environment together with economic measures for providing relief to workers and buyers. So, there's no doubt about it. The government is trying to ensure that we remain stable, and then there are some economic push by some of the commercial banks, by the central bank, to leave the disposable income in people's pockets, even when the unemployment increases. And then the social factors are closely linked to the technology factors here, since social distancing is required. And as a result, individuals have a need for working and communicating virtually. So there's something that may stay, again, depending on how long we wait or we how long it takes to get a vaccine. We may have to stick with this new social norm, this new way of communicating and subsequently producing our products, right? The environmental factors will renew the call from environmentalists for a new way of work post COVID 19, if we ever go post COVID 19. And this will be reinforced with legislations. So, that's a quick summary of the tool, how you can use the tool to look at your business. I'll ask Nigel if we have any questions at this point in time. He can please free to just feed them through to me.
Thanks, Wesley. All right, guys, please feel free to post your questions to the message window to the right. I know Wesley is giving us quite a mouthful here. It's really stimulating our thinking with respect to a detailed macro analysis driven by the COVID 19 trigger.
Yeah.
Wesley, no questions as yet.
Okay, great. So we move right on. So please feel free, as I said before, if you see some areas that you think can add to what we're discussing,
Mhm.
please type it in chat. If you see a political area that you think is worth mentioning, you can add it in chat there and we can discuss it. That's what the webinar is about. So we're going to move on now to another tool. We've looked at Pestel, and just to mention, Pestel has many the way you arrange these words will give you many acronyms. Some people call it pestle, some people call it steeple, some people call it steel, some call it step, right? Basically they all have the same concept. It's just a rearranging of the words. Great. So when we go into the industry now, so we're going to use what we call the Porter's Five Forces. Now, this framework was developed in 1979, and most of you all may know this author, Michael E. Porter of Harvard Business School, and it looks at the competitive strength and position of a business in relation to the market and the industry that they operate in. So now we've looked at the global trend so far. We're into now our business and our industry, our competition. How are they behaving? How are we behaving? What is our relative position? So, four areas determine the level of competitive rivalry. And you'll see competitive rivalry in the middle here, right? In relation to the industry or market. So these four areas give us our key in terms of where we at. In conjunction with the tools like Pestel and SWOT, we look at SWOT in a short while, analysts provides areas of focus for business product offerings. So once you know your competitive position here, you will know what products you should offer, what prices you should give it at in relation to your competitors, how easy it is for others to enter the market, how easy it is for others to what? To copy your product, right? So we're going to go into to this one of these areas here, which is the buyers in the market. What is the power of the buyers in the market here? So let's take a closer look. The buyer power, this is the ability of the buyer to push prices down Are they able to push prices down? Sometimes if you have a lot of buyers on the market, it means they can push those prices down. Or very few, sorry, the reverse to that is very few buyers will push prices down, right? In the COVID-19 situation, some products are not selling due to the economic factors of unemployment and the fear of spending. Therefore, suppliers have to offer their products at cheaper prices. So you have a buyer who, in this environment, is fearful. We may have a lot of buyers, but because of the fact that they are fearful of what may come in the future and they need to save that money, they are powerful, they become few. There's also that factor of unemployment where they want to save that money for some essential products or for products that they will purchase just in time. So the power of the buyer is relatively high in the market, and questions for responding to the buyer's power. We can ask ourselves some questions here. How do we adjust our prices to meet the reduced customer demand as a result of a fall in the personal disposable income, to remain profitable basically? How far can we drop our prices? So in an environment where the buyer's power is high, in an economic situation of COVID, we need to start looking at our profit margins and to see, okay, sales has fall, how much percentage points can we drop our profits by, right? So the other question is, which products do we decide not to offer anymore in our product mix, and how do we make them more attractive to the customers, those products that we decide to keep? So the products that are not really profitable, we may say, listen, let's get rid of those products, let's stop producing them, let's stop offering them, take that cash, take that money, and invest it in marketing for the products that are a priority. And then we go into this marketing campaign that is launched where, when we look at the pest and the technology and the social trend, people going towards social media. So we take that extra cash from the product we stop offering and we put it into advertising using technology, social media, right? So those are some of the decisions we may have to take as a result of the buying power of or the power of the buyers. The other area we'd look at shortly is the supplier's power, right? So the supplier's power is indicated by the number of suppliers in the market and the uniqueness of their product offering. At this time, there has been a cut in the amount of products on the market, right? And this is due to the lockdown and the travel ban. For example, Amazon products have slowed down and it takes longer to get products in. Now, this may provide an opportunity for us. If these foreign suppliers could no longer get their products into our market, this may increase our strength. So the supplier power may increase. But some of the questions we may need to ask here is, what opportunities has the lockdown provided to our local businesses? So as a result of this lockdown, what is the opportunity with our products? Are we competing with a lot of foreign products? Can we carve out a niche now for our product in the local market? Right? Could we satisfy that customer need? Some of those questions. The other one is, will this limited access in our local markets last for long? So how long will it last for? Comparing this to a timeline is critical for strategic decisions. And of course, project management can help here. But we wouldn't go too much into that just yet, just to give you an idea of the industry first. So those opportunities provided as a result of the lockdown, can we change these opportunities into our strengths? Some of the questions we need to ask ourselves. And then, of course, we go into the threat of substitutes, right? The, th- the threat of substitution is based on the amount of similar products to ours in the market space, making it easy for customers. And if we have plenty substitute products, customers can easily switch. They can easily go across to another customer or another supplier and get the same product or something very similar. So the questions we need to ask ourselves here, and responding to COVID, is it relatively easy for the customer to switch suppliers? So can the customer move from purchasing a cell phone and go right next door, the product offering I'm offering, if I'm offering a cell phone, and get one right next door. It takes no effort, it takes no cost for him to switch that, to switch to a new supplier. So do we have um, some of the questions again? Do we have to travel to other locations when you're looking at how difficult it is, or take long to get a similar product to what we offer? Right? So the other area we can ask ourselves is how easy it is for another supplier to offer the same product that we're offering. So we into business, we're looking at our business offering. Can somebody just copy what I'm offering and then affect my sales and then bring my prices down? Right? So those are some of the questions you need to ask yourself as you look at the substitute products in the market and the competition that is in the market. And then we have the threat of new entrant. And there's a big one at this time, right? Because the threat of new entrant is the ability of the new suppliers to enter the market, right? So presently with COVID, it is difficult to enter the market and trade. This can continue for some time. So on an international basis, people are finding it difficult to get into our markets. There's also the local businessmen who are deciding, listen, we're not going to go into any new business ventures at this time until we're certain. So given those factors, if we are in business, what do we do? How do we respond? And some of the questions we need to ask is, how long will these barriers to trade last? And what are the competition doing to still get their products to the customers? So you may still have competition who can't get into the market physically anymore with their office, etc. But they find creative ways to bring that product. And you can learn from that level of creativity to remain viable. The other question is, will we have to adjust to online orders again to satisfy customers? And how much effort and cost is involved? So, again, once you decide to take a new strategic direction, you're going to definitely have to cost it. You're going to definitely have to put a timeline against it. And then you're going to definitely look at the quality you're going to offer. Those areas are more project management areas. So, we've looked at those four areas. I've done a sort of a scenario here, and as I had mentioned earlier, using these tools are basically um, done in big planning sessions, and they usually will score each area. Each individual will give a score for each area, and then that will determine the weight of each factor in relation to the Porter's five forces, or even in relation to pestle. So I looked at suppliers being high, and I rated it at 5, right? And also buyers also being high, their power being high to an extent. Substitute products as well. So sorry, just going into this. Substitutes, these are still available at the lower cost. So I still had that at about 3. New entry, not much physical companies, but most have moved to online selling and delivery. And I scored that at 3. And I think these things will change. So putting these things at this point in time, or scoring these areas at this point in time, will need to be reviewed as you go along. So it's never set in concrete. You need to keep reviewing how you look at each area in relation to your business. So as a result, the competitive rivalry given these scores will be high, and therefore a need for you to start looking at your internal capabilities, right, and competitive advantage in the market, which leads into the next framework of SWOT analysis. So what we've done so far, just recapping, we've looked at the Porter's five forces, we've looked at how competitive it is in the market in relation to 4 areas, and then once we've positioned ourselves in the market, we're going to now look at how we can improve in the market, what we're good at in the market in terms of our internal capabilities, and then how we can improve with the competition that is in the market. So just before we go there, I'll ask Nigel if we have any questions. You could please feel free to feed them to me now.
Hi, Wesley. No questions as yet. I think probably participants are deep in thought,
Great,
right? Given the application of the tools, often of times we often learn about the tools, but we really see the application of the tools.
great,
So,
great.
thanks very much.
Certainly,
Mhm.
certainly, and these tools can apply in your personal life. It can apply on a business level. It can apply at any level once you start using the framework. So we're gonna go into now looking at the local market. What is our sorry, we're gonna look at our business. We're gonna look at our business capability. What is our strengths, our weaknesses, threats, and opportunities. So we're gonna go into that a bit now. And again, this is internal. This deals with our capabilities and how we are going to now respond to the Porter's five forces and competitive rivalry, given the macro environment and the pestle framework. So now we would look at the internal capability of the business organization. The following areas will give us an indication of how prepared we are to face the existing market conditions as analyzed previously and for crafting a strategy that distinguishes us from the competition and so compete successfully in our market. We'll be looking at each area and brainstorming based on specific questions. So it's a sort of a question exercise that you will conduct with your team. Again, this is a team effort. You can do it on your own, but you always need to bring people in who are actually involved in production, in marketing, etc., and get their views as well. Right. So when we look at strengths, some of the questions we're going to ask is, what do we do well? And this can be things like our business processes, including processing time and delivery. Are we good at delivery? We should keep doing that well. Are we good at processing orders, right? Are we good at what other areas are we good at that we should keep our focus on, right? And develop that uniqueness. Again, the other question looks at what unique resources can you draw on. This includes human and technological resources. So you may have strengths, you may also have some resources that you have spare capacity with because they have gone through the learning curve, they have mastered their skill, and it takes less time for them to do their tasks. So now we can transfer them across with this spare capacity to help us with other tasks, right? The other question is, what do others see as your strengths? This is the competition. They may try to copy, your strengths, and this informs our need to maintain privacy. So wherever you hear customers saying, you're strong at delivery, definitely they're gonna try to find out what is your delivery process. How come you get your orders out so quick? So you need to ensure that level of privacy is maintained so that they cannot quickly copy some of your strengths. So that leads to a competitive advantage there. Some of the weaknesses now, those areas for improvement, we always have areas for improvement, right? What could you improve? Questions we're going to ask here. Again, this relates to business processes, technology, and human resources. For example, communications, manufacturing, storage, ordering equipment. What areas can we in our business improve on? Another area we're going to ask questions about is, where do you have fewer resources than others? This looks at the competition and our capabilities. And are they ahead because of more resources, right? So are they ahead of us and showing up our weaknesses because they have more resources assigned to a task? And this could be their competitive advantage, or it might serve you better on the other end, right? So another question we're going to look at is, what are others likely to see as our weaknesses, right? So that sort of constructive criticism is important, right? Not all of the criticism we look at, but as a team we can sit, send a survey out, gather that information and say, okay, when we look at some of the points raised as our weakness, we can agree with about 50% of the comments, right? We can't go with all, and we may have to restructure the whole organization, and people may not be that truthful, right? So those are the weaknesses. When we go into the opportunities, those are the areas that, we can immediately act upon. These are opportunities for growth in sales, opportunities in revenues. What opportunities are open to you? Some of the questions we need to ask. Given the lockdown, what do you see as an opportunity based on your resources? You might have spare capacity resources, as we discuss in strengths. So you see how strengths and opportunities are closely related. Oftentimes, because of our strengths, we can create opportunities in our industry create opportunities in our market? The other question is, what trends could you take advantage of? In the macro environment, what trends are there? These are the social trends in the market, but again, linked to your strengths. So the strengths that you have can also support this opportunity based on the trends that we see in the macro environment. And the third question is, how can you turn strength into opportunities? That spare capacity you have, again, turning that into an opportunity to produce a new product. You'll have to obviously do some research. So opportunities are closely linked to conducting research in the market and seeing where there are some niche areas that you can start satisfying. Right? So that covers the areas of opportunities. We're going to look at threats a bit here. The survival of the fittest, of course. And if we don't do certain things, we can fail. And what threats, the questions here are, what threats could harm you? The possibility of COVID-19 lasting for a year, for beyond a year, could be a threat to some people. Their business may be so structured that, if this threat continue, it will cost too much to restructure the organization. We've lost so much customers, better we just scrap things and start afresh, right? The other question is, what is your competition doing? You can learn from them. Some competition had already upgraded to the technological needs, and this can potentially change the entire market, and you don't want to be left behind. So it's important to observe your competition. And the last question here is, what threats do your weaknesses expose you to? Losing your market share and loss of profits due to pricing below cost. So the threat of COVID continuing, right, can lead to you what? At this present time, dropping your prices below cost so that at least you get some revenue in. But if it lasts too long, it can put you totally out of business, right? So these are some of the areas just to stimulate your thoughts. you know what you need to look at, if you're in business. Not only if you're in business, sometimes if you're a sole trader, sometimes if you just work in an organization, you can lend some support by saying, hey, let's look at these areas. These are my suggestions. And it's backed by research, right? So your suggestions are backed by research because it's a tested framework that we're looking at here, and there's no wrong or right answer. It just depends on you getting as much thought in your analysis, etc. But before I go more into how you should go about using the tools, I'll field some questions from Nigel, please.
Hi. Thanks, Wesley. Thanks for opening the floor. Guys, please feel free to type your questions in the message window. Wesley, thanks for the great application of the tools. As I said
Sure.
earlier, many a times you see we learn about the tools in theory, but given the COVID-19, right, I think you handsomely portrayed a deep and
Sure.
rich application of the tools. Um, Given
Yeah.
the COVID-19 situation, many companies, as a first response, they are embarking on an exercise of cost retrenchment.
Yes.
But too often we see it as an opportunity. We should see it as an opportunity, as we mentioned in our planning discussions, opportunity to be innovative. How do we rethink our business model? How can
Yes.
we improve service to our customers? What
Certainly.
alternatives of delivery can we
Yeah.
experiment with in serving our customers? Some
Certainly.
supermarkets have responded. Supermarkets in many quarters of Trinidad and Tobago have responded by home deliveries. Instead of
Certainly.
supermarket, you can email your
Yeah.
shopping list to the supermarket, and they will actually deliver it to you within a 1 day or 2 days. And that's a simple example of how companies have responded. And that's quick thinking.
Sure.
And, as I listen to you, I have a topical, question, and I'm going to put you on the spot here. You
Yeah.
know, we're going to switch gears a little bit and pretend I'm a student, right?
Sure.
Um, as we are in the month of July 2020, and as we are wrapping up the closure of the financial year 2019 to 2020, as we commence and embark on the new financial year, September to October 2020 to 2021. In your estimation, what does it mean for the local economy for the rest of the year, right? In terms of commerce, in terms of human interaction,
Well,
given the economic standing of the country at this point in time, in your estimation?
Well, I think in terms of commerce, there definitely will be a new norm. Businesses have adjusted. Most businesses have adjusted.
Mhm.
And the good thing
Yep.
about the approach is that you can look at what other countries that are ahead of us, what are they doing. So recently we saw the UK, the England invited the British invited Trinidadians to start entering their country without being quarantined, right? So if we start looking at how some countries are taking measures, that could have been a political and economic um, measure on their part.
Mhm.
It could inform how we start to do business, or how we continue to do business, how we adjust our business given those trends. So I like to go on research, and I like to look at what the top, if you want to say, the top gunners are doing, or those who are ahead of us, ahead of the curve. What are
Yeah.
they doing that we can learn from? And then I've seen a question there by Zach, and I could
Yeah.
bring that SWOT analysis in here. We can use that SWOT to say, okay, if these countries are doing um, particular measures, what is
Mhm.
our strengths, weaknesses, opportunity, and threats given those measures that those countries are taking? Can we cope with it? Right?
Mhm.
Or is it an opportunity for us? Some countries, for instance, Canada has seen the opportunity to have, is, do you call it staycation, vacations at home? So
Yeah.
you have interstate, province travel. Right?
Mhm.
Those are opportunities to still maintain the tourism industry and to keep the economy circulating.
Yeah, thanks, Wesley. I'm glad you mentioned Great Britain. I was trying to be, was still a member of the Commonwealth.
Sure.
Um, uh, what does it mean for the first quarter of next year, in terms of the local economy, in terms of international trade and commerce? And I'll tell you why I asked that question. Just this morning, I was chatting to a small entrepreneur, and his business has been virtually crippled, by the advent of
Yeah.
COVID-19. And he's hoping that there will be a turnaround, in the last quarter of this year, but more so in the
Yeah.
first quarter of next year. And his business is really more along the entertainment lines and so on,
Yes.
and so on for the
So
entertainment sector. What
yeah.
is Do we anticipate a turnaround in terms of
No,
commerce, in terms of
well, I will say I
mhm,
anticipate growth, because we have now become accustomed to this new approach.
yeah,
There'll be no turnaround per se. There'll be a new approach, and we need to move forward with it. Organizations,
mhm,
again, and you can relate. Some of our participants could relate as well.
yeah,
Organizations will have to become agile, right? So they'll
yes,
have to be able to change quickly. They'll have
yes,
to employ a lot of technology to help with their processing, as we discussed earlier, in terms of
yes,
their processing of orders, etc. And then, of course, later on, I know one of our facilitators will cover procurement. They need to there's a need to refit your organization along the lines of health and safety. That macro area of the laws, health and safety, will now inform some of the
mhm,
things we need to procure, like face shields,
mhm,
screens when you're selling at the customer, that can cost us. And as
yes,
a result, cost the price that we offer products as. But again, it's a lot of factors to look at to determine exactly where we would be. But I am
mhm,
certain, as a human race, we are creative. And as a result, we will find solutions, and we have the technology, and growth will come about.
yes. Thanks, Wesley, for that confidence. I think
Sure. Sure.
is big one,
So just to wrap it up, Nigel, I have one more to present on there. I don't want to lose the
you
train of thought with the participants. So just to
giving
present
this
on what's next for us.
Miss Oriella.
You there, Nigel?
Of the models is most
I'm not hearing you
trends.
too. I'm not hearing you too clearly, Nigel.
Yes, are you hearing me? Are you hearing me?
No, I'm not hearing you too clearly.
One, two,
So,
three. Okay, great. Difficulties there.
so, so
Wesley, which one of the models is most suited to resilience in organizations? You would have spoken about the pestle analysis, Porter's five forces model. You would have done a competitor analysis. You would have spoken about the SWOT analysis. Which
Right.
one of them think is more suited to resilience and business sustainability
Well,
as we are in this
mhm.
climate of business
Well,
continuity?
yeah, and that's my next slide.
Oh, sure.
Where I would present on where do we go from now, so
Right.
that our business remains sustainable, and that
Okay.
we can endure. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah,
Sure.
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 So thanks for those questions. Very interesting. So your project, where are we now, and how do we go about um, being alive in this COVID environment? And I like to start off with reviewing materials. It's very important for us to review um, the materials that is available before us. And Nigel and I just had a discussion about countries that are ahead of us. What are they doing, right? And we can
Mhm.
learn from that. The fortunate thing here, while it's an unfortunate situation, there are some trends that we can learn
Yeah.
and implement on our side. So the first part of our methodology is to review the online materials, go online, search for some articles in terms of how countries are dealing with COVID, how businesses, so place an emphasis on the sector that you're dealing with, right? And then
Mhm.
select a working committee, so get a group of people who can brainstorm with you, right? And
Yeah.
depending on how large you are, in terms of numbers, you may get an expert to help you um, analyze the data and sort the data. And then, of course, use the frameworks and the templates that we have, right? So the templates presented to you, use those frameworks, use those templates, do your brainstorming around those key areas. There's no right or wrong answer. It depends on your context, right? And then make recommendations for adjustments to your strategic plan in terms of your objectives and where you would like to go. And this is not a linear process where you start at reviewing material and you end at recommendation. And this is what builds resilience. This part of it where you don't start at one point and finish at another, but you continue in a cycle. It's iterative, where you always doing this review, always meeting as a committee, always referring your meetings to the frameworks and consistently making recommendations based on the frameworks that you have, right? So that builds resilience. But to add to that, what we must have now is that project management touch, right? So what we've looked at is the strategy in terms of strategy development and strategy formulation. We need to take project management and apply it to strategy in action and to test, learn, and adapt. So this is more of a cycle and not a linear start and finish. And what can help us here is is the principles of project management. Everything is based on a time. So we need to base our scenarios that we would plan with the team based on a schedule, which is time. It will cost us. So each scenario will have a budget against it. Of course, the quality we want to have is high quality in terms of the deliverable product, right? And then the scope will be our strategy, right? The body of our strategy or our organization, what we want to do as an organization. So I don't want to go too much into this, but this is where resilience is built using a project management approach after doing the reviews and continuously doing it so that you make changes in the organization. You
Yes.
become agile, right? If you need to bring in additional expertise, you bring it in. If you need to bring in technology, as we discussed earlier, if you need to cut certain products out that are no longer marketable and selling and invest that money into the products that are selling through advertising campaigns, these are some of the things you need to do. What also builds resilience, Nigel, is that agility, not just in the process, but the agility of the people, right? How willing are people um, to go to reskill and to retool and to start second careers, right? So the pandemic is asking us to basically start another career, so to speak, or
Mhm.
to pick up other areas that we can major or minor in, right? So it's a continuous learning cycle, a continuous adjustment, but based on the parameters of the framework, complemented by the project management principles. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks very much, Wensley. As you mentioned, business agility. One key term that has often been bandied about and continues to be is a learn organization. I think given the climate, we all businesses, organizations, must be able to adapt and learn and reflect on their feet. So I think
Sure.
I quite agree with you. We have to be more robust, agile, resilient.
Sure.
Well, can I pause you to offer a question? We have a
Sure.
question from Rihanna. Do projects in the Caribbean, are they particularly disadvantaged given the situation?
Well, when we say disadvantage, that's very subjective.
Yes, yes,
But how do we take those disadvantages if we perceive them as disadvantages and
yes,
turn them into advantages? So
yes,
Caribbean countries, and strange enough, I was having this discussion with a friend yesterday.
yes.
I see more opportunity and advantages for us
Mhm.
because of our tropical nature. One, and then the need for us to cut our imports. So the foreign food import bill is something we can cut because we manufacture because of our tropical nature. We can actually grow
Mhm.
most of our food.
Yeah,
So those disadvantages, some people may say, I prefer to go price smart and purchase all my
yes,
stuff from wherever it comes from. But there's also an advantage there, to start doing things on your own. So there are unique disadvantages, but again, it is how you face it, the risk involved, and as an area I know you can also talk to
yeah.
what risks are involved, and
Mhm.
and how do we mitigate that risk and hopefully turn those negative risk into
Mhm.
positive risk. So we all have unique disadvantages, but again, how do we address those disadvantages?
Thanks, Wesley. I think we can both have a co-presentation on risk management in a
Certainly.
challenging situation.
I think I'm seeing a question by Zach. Can any type of organization use the SWOT analysis?
Mhm.
Yes, any type of organization can use the SWOT analysis, and you can use it in your personal life. That's fine as well.
Yes, yes.
Yes.
So, Wesley, I know that you're about to wrap up.
Yes.
Sure.
So our learning outcomes upon completing this webinar, what you will have an overview. So we're going over the learning outcome for conducting a micro and macro analysis of the business environment, using tools and techniques for creating your strategic plan and direction. So it has been a very good presentation and engaging with you. I'm happy to have shared this information with you. Please share your thoughts in the evaluation and how we can improve, and log on to the others as I hand over to Nigel. And
Mhm.
you can call on me, Nigel, if any questions come through.
Sure,
I could unmute and we can chat some more.
sure,
So thank you guys.
sure. Thanks, Wesley, for handing over. Do we have any questions, guys? I'm seeing about 38 persons locked on at this point in time. So I'm glad you can spend your lunchtime break with us. Uh, any questions at this point in time as we seek to close? I know it has been a free floating discussion, entertaining questions, presentation, information rich, and research driven for the past hour or so. Thanks to all the participants. Thanks, Siobhan. Thanks, Rishram, for all the kudos. No questions? Okay. Right. So I think at this point in time, Wesley, I would like to say thank you very much for an insightful presentation, content-driven, research-driven, and great application to our local climate and international climate as we speak. As I conclude, I would like to say a vote of thanks and a special thank you to Team Cipriani, all members of the IT department. I particularly would like to acknowledge Mr. Antonio Armstrong from the IT department being on call at all times, and helping us with the IT issues to put together this quick webinar. Members of the marketing and stakeholders department, Alison, Ms. Solange, Lauren, the entire marketing department, members of the college, wider stakeholders, the student body, members of the guild, members of our successful webinar series, the Emma Francois webinar series, the cooperative studies webinar series, and wider stakeholders. I particularly would like to say thank you to all participants here. I know that you guys have been multitasking during your lunchtime. Some of you may be at work, having a working lunch. Some of you might be accessing the presentation through your mobile phone in your vehicle. Some of you may be at home. Thankfully, I am at home at this point in time. I hope my boss is not watching. So, thank you for, posing these questions, and being actively involved, right, in this discussion here. It certainly affects us all, not only at the organizational level, but as the individual at the individual level. I can safely say that the first installment of this project management webinar series was a resounding success. And I know you, the participant team, and all stakeholders will be looking for the following installments in the coming weeks. Our second session, revisiting, right? The project portfolio, project identification and selection is scheduled for July 23rd around the same time. Please spend your lunch hour with us. So we would like to formally invite you to our second webinar series, right? Please look out for further details on our Facebook page, our website. Please feel free to contact me directly at prmonline at cclcs.edu.tt. Please feel free to share your thoughts. I know Antonio, our IT administrator, will post the webinar evaluation link right in the YouTube channel. Please feel free to evaluate this webinar session, the first for the project management department, the first in the series, right? Please feel free to rate and give feedback onto your thoughts, the quality of the presentation, the technical content presented, and how can we improve. As we mentioned, we are learning together as we seek to build a project management COVID-19 community. So in closing, thanks to all. Um, Thanks to all, and we do look forward to seeing you next time, July 23rd. Be here. Thank you and God bless.